Well, first, I don't like having my back to the chair. Thank you. She's kind of rude. My mama raised me better than that. So you don't do that. But here, I'll do this. This will be good. First off, thanks to the community council, Sharon, for inviting me to come give a little brief update on what's going on in the county. I like to get around to all the different communities. I try at least once a year to do a little check-in. And I'll do kind of a quick, kind of what's going on in the county, but hopefully I'd like to leave some time, if possible, for questions, because that's really what I like to do as far as to get feedback from you folks. So we'll go with that format. That's okay. So first, let's talk about the county. Usually one of the most important things people want to know is what's the fiscal health of the county. Because that's one thing as a county commissioner, that's one of the principal responsibilities of the county commissioner is to safeguard, look after the assets of all of us, of our stuff. That could be our money, our facilities, our roads, our buildings, and everything. And so I'm here to say that the county's actually in pretty darn good shape. We are probably arguably in the best shape of any county in the state as far as our fiscal health. And that's really due to lots of factors, some that I and the board have control of, and others that are just good happenstance as well. But starting about in 2009, we were looking at, and I think I've talked about this before, about the general decline. We were potentially in a deficit situation in the county, and that was one thing that the board has always had a really strong emphasis on sustainability. That you don't live beyond your means. And so with the downturn in the economy, that was one of the things we looked at. And so we didn't actually run a deficit that year, but on the budget it looked like we were going to get close. So starting in 2010, we implemented a 5% reduction across the boards. We furloughed everybody, including me, as far as because we felt like if we were asking our employees to take a 5% cut, we should too. But the thing about furloughs is furloughs are not permanent solutions, because it's easy because the pain is shared across everybody. But the bad thing is we all know that some departments have less ability to absorb those cuts than others. And it was kind of gutsy really on our part that we actually took a look at the whole organization. We actually targeted cuts, and there are some departments that took very large cuts, 18, 20% reductions. There were other departments that took none, because when we looked at them, they were pretty efficient. They provided kind of critical services, and so we elected them. We took some heat for that, particularly those departments that took big cuts. They were like, hey, what about this? You're not doing anything to these people. And it's like, well, there's only 3 of them there. So we made that permanent in 2011. And we basically made that 5% reduction in the overall county government permanent in 2011. And so we've been operating that way ever since. And the reality is we have not really seen service level reductions that we were concerned about that. We figured, if we hear from people that it's not working, we'll look at it as far as making some changes. But, for the most part, I don't know. I guess I would ask you, did any of you really notice much of a change? As far as there are some things that were changed that you have noticed. The last time I was here, one of the things that we, in our restructuring was the financial health so I guess, you know, in the early days, they actually toyed with the idea of doing like Alaska does with a permanent fund, where they would take whatever it generated and they would send a check to everybody every year. And there would be some practical issues with that. And so the board at the time determined really the best way to take that benefit and spread it out amongst everybody is just to pay down the tax rates. And so about this year we're at 37% of the general fund is funded from the landfill. It's a direct grant. And so that's 37% that you're not paying in taxes. We just take that money, it's about $4.3 million. It's a direct transfer from that into the general fund. And so I suspect that if we had to come, just to give you some perspective, all of the property tax that we collect in Klickitat County for county government, for county general fund government, is just a little more than $4 million. So to keep the same service levels, if we didn't do that, we would have to double your property tax, the county portion of the property tax. It would double your property tax. But that's why that's really important, that landfill stays healthy, that we keep those clients. And we started, when I first came into office, after about a year, because I always heard about the landfill and how important it was, but I don't think I understood how critical the financial health of that was to our citizens. You have the direct, as I said, the $4.3 million that gets put into the general fund. We actually budget, historically, we actually taken about $8 million comes into the county off the landfill. It's actually more money than all property tax and sales tax put together generates in that county. And so we also use that. We've got the $4.3 million goes into the general fund. We put $1 million a year into the road fund for local access roads. And these are roads that are not eligible for any other funding. These are your roads. So if you see improvements like is on our 6-year plan, where you want to build a new firewall, and we had a request to upgrade the road for that, which will happen. It is on the plan. That road is not eligible for any funding, and so that will be funded out of that $1 million that we get from the landfill. And so that's another one of those aspects. We also use it for economic development. We use it for infrastructure improvements. And one of the things that the county has been really successful doing is attracting grants from other state and federal agencies, because we can do really healthy matches. Because generally, like as you know, the folks that were involved building this structure, CDBG grant, you had a local match. We had to come up with, which the county actually helped, again, came from, and you folks all helped from fundraising, but the county helped. In other counties, they can't do that because they don't have that disposable income. And so what we generally do is that we're able to be really successful because it's a very competitive process. And you get points for what your project is and what local resources that you bring. So if it's a minimum 10% match, and so if you're going for $1 million grant and you got to come up with $100,000, you get 50 points if the community can do that. But if you can, what we do is we say, what's it going to take to move us up the list, and we'll match $250,000 towards that, because we would rather invest $250,000 and get $1 million than invest $100,000 and get nothing. And so we've been really successful doing that. And so you can see infrastructure projects all around the county that have been ongoing, things that are necessary for down at the port with in situ and the whole aerospace stuff done under the county has been very instrumental in seeing that whatever the port needs as far as for infrastructure, that we're able to get grants or we fund it ourselves. And that really was critical when in situ was looking, when they were doing their whole campus proposal. The county and myself, I actually led that effort. One of the things that really should be noted that there was just a commission, economic study that was done last year that showed that's over 20% of the payroll in Clickitat County is in aerospace. And that is a payroll that did not exist 10 years ago. And so, you know, we're a bright spot in the economics, which is, you know, having grown up here, it's hard to think of Clickitat County as being an economic powerhouse in the state of Washington. And so, you know, I'm pretty proud of that, and I think we all should be. Let me check my notes, and I want to leave lots of time for questions. Infrastructure, I'll give you a little update. EMS district. First off, if you haven't heard it, thank you as far as for supporting the levy, to form the district and fund the district that we put out. That was last August, in the primary last August. Passed, I think, pretty overwhelmingly, about 70%, which is a real mandate to us that that's a service that folks want. And I always think, you know, levy elections, that is a really good way to get an indicator when it comes to money about what people think is important and not important. You know, I always think of my job in government, the way I look at it, at least my philosophy, is that my job is to provide the highest level of service that the taxpayers want and ask for and are willing to pay for. And that's a really strong caveat. And, you know, a lot of times everybody thinks it's a great idea, but then it's like, oh, you want to raise my taxes to do that? You know, and so we did, that was very important. The EMS district took effect January 1st. The Board of Commissioners, the three of us are the acting interim board until we turn it over to the successor board, I guess is what they're called, which will be a 5-member folks. And so we've got, basically it's an open recruitment period right now for those. And so if you know anybody or any of yourselves that would like to serve on that board, we're looking for folks. You don't necessarily have to have a medical background because we need folks with business backgrounds, with, you know, accounting or maybe management or different things. And this is, you know, we basically built a district from the ground up, which I've never done before. And it's been a challenge. And so that is progressing. I was in the city of Bingen last week and the city of White Salmon, getting their approval on the interlocal and the bylaws for it, because the cities, the county, and the hospital districts are the partners in it. And so again, we need good folks to be those directors. So if you think maybe that's something you could do, then I'll have my card here. You can send your resume or what you'd like to do. But we're trying to get that list together because we're going to be making selections for that board in the next month. And so our hope is by April 1st that we'll turn over governance to the new board and we'll be out of it. So dispatch radio, second biggest capital works project this county's ever done. And I think it's a sign of the fiscal health of the county that we did this with no levy increases, no tax increases, no bonds, no anything. We basically saved up for it and we built it. And it's all paid for and there's no debt. And now we're saving for whatever the next infrastructure thing is. Yes?
If you could explain that project a little bit more.
I will. As far as, I should be so focused on dollars, so but that's the nature of my job. So what that is the emergency dispatch system, as far as in the county. I don't want to say it was antiquated, but it was definitely, it's because we're still using it right now, and it still works fine. But we were mandated by FCC to go to narrow banding on the radio. It was the old, I guess, analog kind of system, and FCC mandated that you had to said, you know, we need to do this, and when we're gonna do it, let's upgrade, let's get the best technology, and let's upgrade, and let's maybe fix some of these problems that we've got. And so we did. They went out and they figured out what it was gonna cost, came back between 6 and 7 million. By that time, I was on the board. We basically had a heart attack and said, we can't do that. That's what can we do for 3 or 4? As it ended up, it was when we actually looked at it, there really was nothing that we, you know, if you're going to do it, it's go big or stay home. As far as, you know, to spend half as much money and have it not work, why would you do that? And so, the system now has been under construction for the last 3 years, really in earnest the last 2 years, and there are 9 tower sites around, some of them scattered in Oregon. I believe 7 of those are actually new sites that we have to actually go acquire either ground or leases, and then new communication towers have been put up. As part of that too, our current dispatch is housed in the courthouse itself, in the sheriff's office. And it was in kind of pretty inadequate facilities as far as if you've gone in there. It's kind of interesting to go in there sometimes as far as the 911 center, but it's fairly cramped in there, and there literally was not room in there to put the new equipment. That there was physically no place to put it, because it was important to us that you know, 911 is not something that you can take offline, tear all the stuff out, put the new stuff in. And so we elected to, you know, we wanted 2 complete, you know, so that the old system would keep operating. We would install the new system, make sure it all works. We would switch over to the new one, keep the old one for backup until it was really tried and true, and we made sure. And so the only way we could do that, and we had been having discussions, is that we really did need a new dispatch center. And so that was part of that expense as well, is that we did build a new state-of-the-art dispatch center in Goldendale, and we had the groundbreaking, I think it was, or not groundbreaking, the ribbon cutting was like in, I want to say November, December. I know it was cold, I do remember that. And so that is proceeding. There's been, we're not on the new system yet. We are, you know, weeks away from it. It's all completely, everything's constructed, everything's built. We've had a little hold up with, there was some issue with the integration of the 911, the actual telephone piece of it, where CenturyLink has not been, they're not on wireless right now, or lots of it. And so there's some issues, but that's being worked out, and so we should. So that's what it is. And so when you know, we said it's important when you dial 911 that somebody answers, and when they're going to dispatch, that they're actually able to communicate to the people in the field. And so we actually built the system so that we'll be able to add capability for a mobile data channel, which is law enforcement has been asking for, where they have the computers in their cars, and so that they would have, you know, internet access over this data channel in real time. And so our system was designed for that. We've not added that because that was a significant, that was about another, I want to say about another $1 million. And so that's one of the things that we will be looking at, what we say, as we save for future infrastructure. Maybe that's something that we save for.
Now, this is to be used for like disaster preparedness also?
It can be. There's actually 4 channels on it. It's used, so this fire department right here will use this new system. Search and rescue. We actually have 4 channels. We envisioned it, you know, Public Works could use it too for their, you know, because they've got folks out all over the county as well. And then, yeah, so if there was like an emergency, then it would activate that. And that's that new dispatch center. It's not just that. It's what they call it EOC, where it's for, would be like the command center if we had a disaster. Everything's there. It's got, you know, backup generators. It's got a lot of redundant stuff. And that was one of the things that that building cost us a little over $1 million to build it. And we were just, you know, I'm a construction guy. I'm a building contractor. I was like, it's like a chicken house. I mean, it's a nice building, but it's not $1 million. But it's the equipment. It's not the structure. And the structure had to be built to certain specifications, so that, you know, even things like so I'm hoping the fire department folks are training and being patient. And one of the things the county did do, and we talked about this before, is 2 years ago, we made some revisions to the community development fund where we used to give out dollars, which was very popular. But that was one of those things that we diverted a goodly portion of that money, because we generally we distributed $350,000 a year to communities around the whole county from landfill proceeds for county projects. Some of those dollars you're sitting on it probably. 2 years ago, we said, public safety is our top priority. And so, as such, we're going to divert 300 of that 350 towards this radio project. And then the $50,000 a year that we budget for that's remaining, the first priority is public safety, so that as we upgrade these radios, if there are things that the local, either fire departments, to be able to access this new system, if they need dollars for that, that's what we're going to fund first. And we did. We bought lots and lots of radios and other equipment for all of our fire districts around the county, so that they can, it doesn't do them any good to have this new system if they can't use it. And so we did do that. And that fund's still there. And so it's there for infrastructure needs, and it's basically for fire departments, because the county law enforcement, we already would provide that, as far as although the sheriff might have a different perspective, but we don't not
We
know.
are part of public safety.
Yes, you are. So we do that. So that's with that. And I think with that I've talked plenty. And so I would be happy to take questions on it. It doesn't have to be on a topic I talked about. It could be about anything. This is your chance. Yes, sir.
So I attended, my name is Chris Savin. I attended the meeting last night.
Yes, I saw you there.
Concerning some trail development. So my concern, since public safety is a primary concern, what is this business about having a potential trailhead / parking lot on Centerville Highway on DNR land, right where all the hunters are going to go when they hunt? I'm concerned as an individual of traffic congestion, traffic accidents, pedestrian being clobbered, and people going to the north side of Centerville Highway, more DNR cattle lands. I'm just concerned about what's your opinion on this?
Well, we are concerned. I'm concerned personally, and I'm also, the county's definitely concerned too, as far as, and since any potential access point, parking lot, whatever that would be off of the county road would require the county's permission and various permits. That would be our ability to, and we've done this before. There's one, and we have to remind them sometimes, because we had the Forest Service at Catherine Creek. I don't know, probably some of you have been there. As far as that's, I live down there, so it's, it's kind of, I'm sensitive to it, I'll say. But same thing where they went, they built trails on the south side of the road, on the old highway there, and they built handicap parking. So I'm all for, I'm not, but they built it. They came in and asked us if they could build this access point. And we said, you can't, it doesn't meet, we have safety concerns, we have our standards, and you can't build it there, you have to build it over here. Well, they just went and did it. And so they were paving it, and it's relatively small. It's only 2 spaces, I think, is all they put over there for handicap parking. But the day they paved it, I had a conversation with the area manager and said, what? Because I drove by it, and it's like, I don't recall, I thought we said no, and they're just doing it. And so I talked to our public works director, and he said, no, there's no permit for that. We never issued that because it wouldn't qualify. They just did it. And so I got a hold of the area manager and said, I can tell you that is you're breaking the law, basically. And so they, were, we made a mistake. And so they went up and they put barriers up where now it's just a really big place to start your hike if there's no parking over there. And so We're pretty aggressive about defending the county's right-of-ways and authorities, and we certainly will do that too. I mean, we're trying to stay focused on what the impacts are, and I have to separate my personal feelings versus the county's feelings. But I can tell you, we have serious issues as far as safety. If there, maybe there's a place on there that they could. I don't know. I'm just speculating. We have standards that we can apply, but I think there's some serious. I can't think of how they can do it in a way that would meet the standard. So we won't say yes unless they can. Other questions? Yes?
I have a question. You're on the airport board,
Yes, I am.
and so you're familiar with American Aerospace Engineering is no longer there,
Yes.
and they're late on the rent.
Yes.
And it's my understanding from reading the Department of Commerce that the contract that gives the county $1 million loan, AAE is supposed to match that with $3 million, and they're supposed to have a signed contract for their product. Is that correct?
No, that's not my understanding. You're correct as far as the initial curb grant of $1 million to build the new flex space building
Yes.
was predicated on, as far as the project that we brought to Curb Board, that I actually brought to Curb Board to get funding, was AAE was the proposed tenant.
Yes.
And so you're correct about that. The $3 million, I'm not familiar with that, because maybe that's, I know AAE was not going to participate in the construction of the building or anything, because they would own it. It'll be a publicly owned facility.
Right.
But you are correct as far as AAE, and they were behind in their rent, but that's been cleared up just this week.
They paid it?
Yeah, so that's been taken care of. But I do have to go back to Curb on March 20th with the new tenant, and they have to approve if they're going to let us roll that $1 million, and if they don't, we will build it.
So can you tell us who the new tenant is?
There's actually, Life Flight is one of the new tenants, which is they're currently operating at the airport.
Yeah.
And they want to expand their service, and so they're actually would be the tenant in hand, and then we have some other, I'll call them prospects. But they would use up about 40% of the space that the building, so that would leave the other 60% available for some other tenants.
To rent out.
To rent out. And so our hope, we don't know. I got to go make the case to Curb.
Right, you have to
And if they
convince them.
say that's not good enough, then that'll be the end of it.
I have another question about the airport. I read the stormwater plan, and I also read a lot. So I read the RCW 30, and it states that the county authority to create a stormwater plan within the county is supposed to go to a public hearing. And I don't believe that ever happened.
Okay,
Are you familiar with the stormwater plan at the airport?
at the airport?
Yes.
Yes.
Have
And
you?
I'm
You know it exists.
I know it exists. I am peripherally aware. If you ask me specifics
Right.
of what's in the plan.
It's very technical about the stormwater and how it's going to go away. And so I was reading that, and I was very surprised to find that they really didn't even use the FAA regulations. And I asked the FAA for a copy of that, and they didn't have it. The airport board meeting states that they sent this stormwater plan to the Department of Ecology.
Correct.
And I did a FOIA, and they don't have it.
Okay.
So do you know anything about that?
I could not comment. I can't imagine. I mean, if Ecology's been down, has inspected us, they inspect the project that's going on there. That was one thing I should have talked about too, as far as the business park that's under construction
Yes.
at Dallasport Airport. I don't know how that did not get on my list. But I would have assumed during all these inspections, if we were out of compliance, that would have been brought to our attention. So I'm curious. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I thought it was an industrial park. It should have an industrial.
Generally, Ecology's right on us.
Well, that's not my experience,
Okay. I
because
have a different perspective.
in 2012, I filed a construction stormwater appeal. I'm sure you heard about that. The airport listed it as a complaint, which it wasn't. It was an appeal. It was, and if it had no merit, they would have never heard it. So I was very surprised, because haven't been really political until recently. Because I went to the Ecology And the Pollution Control Hearing Board actually gave a stop work order. It's called a partial stay. And then they just kept working.
They did what?
They just kept working on the runway. This was in 2012. And I called Ecology, and you said they were on top of it. They're not. They didn't care that they kept working. They said it's not in our authority to enforce the partial stay from the Pollution Control Hearing Board, which you really have.
How did that actually end up when it was all said?
How did it end up?
Yeah.
They miraculously found the 2008 delineation of the wetland at the end.
Excuse me,
The whole appeal was about a wetland at the end of
Right.
runway.
and was that